Hey, it's been a while. I haven't done a film review in probably 6 years. Give you guys some context. I do have a 5-year-old that'll be turning 6 next month, so you might be able to figure out why it's been so long. I mean, I started my film critic channel at a bad time. 2019 wasn't necessarily considered a bad time, but it was late 2019. Early 2020, COVID happens. Not a great time for film criticism. The year of 2020, some highlights came out of that year. I'm a Tenet apologist. I think it's a phenomenal film. It's chilling somewhere up here in this collection. But yeah, 2020, not a great year for film. And I hadn't had much of a hankering to really do anything in terms of film criticism for, 6 years. But recently, for whatever reason, I've been watching films through the eyes of a critic, not necessarily through the eyes of an audience member. And it's a different way of doing it. I had my mentor who helped me with film criticism said, when you go into films as a critic, you have to essentially go into them with a different mindset than an audience member. His shtick was he liked to watch movies twice. He says if I reviewed a film and it was a good film, I would always go back a week later and watch it in the theaters, because then I get to see it through the lens of an audience member instead of a critic. It's a different way of approaching a film, and until you actually actively are trying to go into films as a critic, you won't really understand what it is like. But recently, I've been watching films a little bit through the lens of a critic for whatever reason. And one of the films that I just watched 2 nights ago with my daughters was Monsters Incorporated. And I'd seen Monsters Incorporated a gajillion times through the lens of an audience member, whether that was a 9 or 10-year-old audience member when it first came out. I did go see it in theaters when it came out, so I saw it as a kid. And now, obviously as an adult with 2 daughters of my own, I'm able to see the film as an adult, but now I'm able to see it as an adult with the mindset of a critic at the same time. And these are all, again, different ways of approaching a film. This is one thing I like about watching films with my kids is, yes, I'll watch some of the newer, Disney Pixar children's films, animated children's films and stuff like that. And there's some great ones that have come out in recent years. But I really like watching the old ones with my children. Not because I'm an old grouch who thinks just don't make them like they used to, but because you get to see things differently when you revisit these with children of your own. I remember Monsters Incorporated. I remember seeing it in theaters. I remember rewatching it 1,000 times as a kid because I loved that film. And now I see it as an adult with my own kids, and I'm nostalgic of certain things. I see things in a different perspective now that I have that adult's perspective of things. I'll give you a good example of one instance of watching the film. One instance that, was never one that I really enjoyed, disliked, felt any really way about it, was the moment where Sully is going to that scare simulator and Mr. Waternoose keeps hounding him, come on, just roar at the thing. And he's like, oh, fine, whatever. He does this big old roar, but Boo sees it and she runs away crying. That hit me as a dad watching it recently. I was like, oof, right in the feels there. Yep, that'll hurt. So you do see these films through a slightly different perspective as an adult. Ones you were nostalgic for as a kid, now you're older with kids of your own. You see them differently. But when I was watching Monsters Incorporated, despite the fact that I'm just chilling on a Saturday night with my own kids watching a silly kids film, I was kind of viewing it through the lens of a critic. And it got me thinking. I really started to understand what this film is really about. And I have never heard anyone say this about Monsters Incorporated before. We're talking about a kids movie again. But that doesn't mean kids movies aren't well made. That doesn't mean they don't have deep and thoughtful insights into things. Just because they're simply aimed at kids doesn't mean they can be void of them. In fact, all the greatest kids movies have those very present themes in place. What Monsters, Inc., this is what I discovered watching it recently, and again, I've never heard anyone say this before, but what Monsters, Inc. is truly about is it is about the societal lie that is told to young men that kids are a bad thing, that you don't want to have happen in your life. Men are taught this all the time, and you get so many men with that disposition of, I'm not going to get married, I'm not going to have the kids, I'm just going to date, die. And so many men are just fed this lie that, oh, once you have kids, it's over, man, you know, all that fun goes away, you know, it's no good anymore. It's a lie. I say this as a man who has been single. I say this as a man who has been married with no kids. And I say this as a man who is now married with 2 wonderful daughters. It is a lie. And this film explores that. Let's just think about the starting premise of the film. You have these 2 guys. They're bachelors. They're buddies. They're roommates. They're whatever. They've been best friends since the 3rd grade. Sorry, Monsters University. I'm going to stick with that as being canon here. But it starts off with these 2 carefree bachelors, essentially. They're just carefree bachelors. They love going to work. They love their job. They're really good at it. They're the cool kids on the block. And that's their life. If this film wasn't a silly animated kids film about monsters, and it was just a film about 2 guys, it was like a PG-13 film about just 2 guys, these would be the guys who'd be going to the bars on Friday nights, hitting on the ladies and stuff like that, living that carefree bachelor life. Living in a world, in a society that says kids are toxic. Because that is the premise of this film. In the canon of Monsters Incorporated, they are told kids are toxic. And in the process, these men have a kid thrown into their lives. And they believe the societal lies that this kid is toxic. We don't want this kid near us. We don't want this kid ruining our lives. We want to get rid of this kid as fast as possible. That's the whole premise. They get the kid, they're terrified of it, they want nothing to do with it, they want to release it into the wild, they want to send it back to Monsters Incorporated. They want to wipe their hands of this child. And then through the story, you see these men taking on the responsibilities of having a child. Because as a parent, I won't sugarcoat it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of lack of sleep. It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of things. And you see these men dealing with that and struggling with that. But through this, they come to find the paternal side of themselves. And they find, wait a minute, what we've been told is a lie. No, there is joy. There is fulfillment. Unlike anything we've ever experienced before in our lives, caring for this child. And this film is not just a silly film about monsters. No, the writers are actually telling the audience something in this area. I've always said that there's 3 kinds of kids films. There's just crappy kids films. Kids don't like it, the adults don't like it, they suck. Happens. There is the films that kids like and parents want to dig ice picks through their eyeballs about. Trolls franchise might be a good example of this. So the kids love them and the parents just are like, oh my gosh, whatever, they like it, but this is absolutely horrible. And then there's the films that just hit the nail on the head, that have something that is there for the kids and have something that is there for the adults. Not something that me as an adult, I'm going to go down to my basement at 11 o'clock at night and watch by myself. But there is something there for me. There is a profound thing that this film says. And this is something that's very much lost on so much modern filmmaking, and unfortunately even in kids films as well, is having that message be there and subtly pushing the story forward, not beating the audience over the head with all this messaging and stuff like that. No, just being there to structure the story and saying something profound. And Monsters Incorporated, being a product of the early 2000s, that I feel the message is still relevant today. I think so much of society kind of doesn't outwardly say it, but it kind of does fancy the idea that, oh man, once you have those kids, it's over. No more freedom, no more fun. It's just gonna take all these things away from you. It does. Having kids does take things away from you, sure. But what it what is replaced with what it takes is a million times better. And that is what this film is trying to express. And I think it does it very well. And I think this message, being something that was very relevant in the early 2000s, is now very relevant today as well. And I really walked away from watching this film with my kids. Again, just a parent hanging out with his kids on a Saturday night watching a film. But what I took away with it was so profound. I think the film really does have something to say here. And I got a total kick out of it. And I've watched so many more films through this kind of critical lens, so to speak. And I've been able to pick up on messaging that is present in these films, what they are trying to say, and it does give you new perspectives on things. And of all ones that I get this amazing perspective on, it's Monsters Incorporated. So it's just something I wanted to get off my chest, a little bit of food for thought, so to speak. Just when you're watching a film, what is it really about? Because sometimes it is just a good story. I've always viewed Monsters Incorporated as just a good story, and it is still that. But sometimes if you really dig into the profound message that a film subtly uses as a foundation for the story, you really do take away something special out of that film during that watch. And so, like I said, where so many modern films, especially children's films, tend to say, okay, instead of this profound message being the foundation, now we're going to have it be the roof. It doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. It comes across as preachy. It comes across as you beating the audience over the head with ideas instead of having profound ideas and letting them lift the story up. You have these profound ideas almost pushing the story down. This is why I use the foundation and the roof analogy in this whole thing. Monsters Incorporated came out at a time Pixar understood what to do and what to do right. It's not to say they've lost it. I don't say that. But back when Monsters Incorporated came out, Pixar seemed like this unstoppable force of perfection. They don't feel like that anymore. And part of what they have to do is they have to go back to that. And I'll give you another Pixar example. I'm not going to talk about Toy Story 5 right now, but I will talk about Toy Story 3 and 4. I love Toy Story 3. I think Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 are phenomenal Pixar films. And I think Toy Story 4 is bad. The whole time I watched Toy Story 4, I thought, well, this is a mediocre, unnecessary sequel, but it's fun enough. And then when they get to the ending, I'm like, no, this film is bad. And the reason I say that is because, again, these children's films, they have messages for the children, but they also have messages for the adults. Toy Story 3, the main idea of that film was, hey, Andy's getting older, he doesn't feel like he needs his toys anymore. Okay, parents of teenagers can relate to this. Kids turn into teenagers. The kids feel like they don't need their parents much anymore, because to some extent they don't. And it's painful, it's hard for the parents. The message in Toy Story 3 is Woody saying, hey, listen, Andy may not feel like he needs us guys, but we need to be there for him no matter what. We need to always be there for him. That is our job as his toys. That is our responsibility as his toys. It's a complete mirror of parenting, essentially. Is that, yes, your kids, like my kids right now, 2 and 6, 2 and 5, almost 6, are just needy as all get out. That is just how small children are like that. They need me for everything. Then they're going to get older. They're going to need me for less and less and less. They're going to move out of the house, and once in a blue moon, I'm going to get called because their furnace isn't working or something like that. And I understand that is the nature of this. It's from a parent's view, it can be sad, but it's reality. It just is. And that is what goes on in Toy Story 3, is, hey, this is what's going to happen. Your kids are going to get older, and they're going to feel like they don't need you anymore. But you always have to be there for them. And tragically enough, there will come a day where you will have to say so long, partner, to them. And that is okay. It's a beautiful and wonderful message. I just loved how that was expressed in Toy Story 3. And then Toy Story 4 flips it on its head. Woody feeling like he isn't being very valued by Bonnie, he still holds on to this idea, well, I still have to be there for her, no matter what. Even if she thinks she doesn't need me, I still need to be there for her. Carrying on that wonderful theme that was developed in Toy Story 3. And then you get to the end of the film, Bo Peep's like, Woody, you know, go ahead, just do you, man. Do whatever you want. Do what makes you happy. You have no responsibility to the kid. Go on, do whatever you want. Live your life. It's horrible. It's a horrible message. I hated that film for that. And again, I'm not going to speak to Toy Story 5, but that was my thing with Toy Story 4. I'm like, oh, this went from mediocre to bad real quick right there at the end. So ultimately, do I hope to accomplish much on making this video? No. This is basically me just kind of thought vomiting out things about film criticism right now to the internet, because it's all pent up in here, and if I say it to my wife, I'm going to just drive her nuts. So what I'm really just trying to say, though, is that great films in general have a great underlying message that they build off of. Bad films try to put that message up on the front, and it just pushes everything down. And it seems like the modern film landscape tends to be doing that right now in a lot of cases, and especially with children's films. And it's wrong. And they need to get back to what they did well, because Monsters, Inc. is a phenomenal film. And I, as a man who has small children, I want new great films to come out every year that I can take them to the theaters to, and they can enjoy, and they can one day want to share with children of their own. But man, oh man, if they keep tossing out crap nugget after crap nugget after crap nugget, my kids aren't going to be able to have that. I don't want that. I want them to be able to have wonderful things that came out during their time in this world that they can share with their kids one day when they get older. And we'll see. I hope so. I definitely hope so. And I'm optimistic that there'll be some good ones that come out. But right now, as it stands, got to step up a little bit, Hollywood. Got to give us something great. Something that says profound things to children and profound things to adults, and does it in an effective manner. But until then, I'm just going to be signing off today. Take care, guys. Watch a film.